Ever loved a movie so much you couldn't wait to own it? You tell your friends, your family, your coworkers, just anyone who would listen. Once it's released, you rush over to possess it, excited to relive the experience. But in the end, it only sits and collects dust. This time, I'll be unwrapping them.
Hello, what's up everybody? Welcome to an Unwrapped review. This is gonna be another multi-layer video franchise, and I'm gonna be doing this slightly similar to my Conjuring video. We're gonna be talking about the Purge franchise. Before I hop into this Unwrapped video, I'm going to be giving a special shout out. Thank you to my lovely Muddy Cold patrons. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to become a Muddy Cold patron, you can hit that link in the description below. I give early access to videos that I post here, things that will be posted on the blog, as well as opportunities to request things for me to review, topics for me to talk about, opportunities to pick things for us to watch on Discord, among other perks. There's so many. But if you do not want to support me monetarily, you can just simply hit that subscribe button below and stop, lurking around and poking around my channel like you just don't want to commit. Make the commitment. Hit the subscribe button. I post content here on Wednesdays or Thursdays, and sometimes I throw an extra video in. You never know unless you subscribe, especially because I'm a little all over the place sometimes with my schedule. I don't mean to, but it happens. Life happens. So, it was July 4th, 4th of July, Independence Day, that I decided, screw this country, I want to watch The Purge. So I spent the whole day watching all 5 Purge movies. Because why not? It's been a while. A lot of us are angry in this country. We've been angry for a long time for various reasons. They just keep adding more and more reasons. And since I own, all of the Purge movies, and I have not taken them at the plastic until now, well, not really now, but 4th of July, I stayed up to watch all these. I think I postponed my stream on Discord because I was so close to finishing this, or I don't know, something happened I know with Discord, and I was just like, I'm gonna finish the Purge movie, I'm gonna be late, or I'm gonna be showing this another day. Something happened, but I was just determined to get through all of these, and I did. And coincidentally, small little shout out to Carnage Candy. She did a whole breakdown review, well, not really breakdown, but she did review all 5 Purge movies, and it was her first time watching almost all of them. I think she had seen, maybe it was the second one or the third one or something, for the second time or something. But I will totally, link her whole review of the franchise, and then I believe she ranked them later, which I have not watched yet, but I will after this video, because I will also be coincidentally ranking them. So this was no influence from her. I did this on 4th of July. I have the proof. You can check my Instagram. Not that anyone would accuse me of copying, but that was what I was in the mood for, because these movies normally came out around 4th of July weekend in the theater, and I've seen all of these in the theater because I thought the premise was super interesting in the first one, and it just continued to be more and more interesting, and I just liked seeing how things unfolded. I will not be commenting on the TV show because I haven't finished it yet. Not because it's bad or anything, I just have a lot to watch. I have a lot of content to get through, and I also work a full-time job, so eventually I am gonna go back and pick up the show. I did start it when it was airing, and then we switched cable providers, so now I have to watch it on Hulu, and then I didn't realize it got a second season, which is great. So I'll probably restart from the beginning just to refresh my memory of what's going on. Or I might just pick up where I left off, because I do know where I left off at. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to start. I'm gonna review these in the order that I watched them in, because I decided to watch them in chronological order of the timeline, not how it got released. So we'll be starting with the First Purge. Normally I don't write a lot of notes, but of course this time I had to write notes so I wouldn't mix them up, and I won't have the same debacle that happened when I was reviewing The Conjuring and I mixed up some details with a different Conjuring. So anyway, I'm going to start off with the Purge, the First Purge, which came out in 2018. This is a prequel to the franchise. I believe this was the movie that came out after maybe the third movie, I think. Double check. Doesn't say. Nice. But I think this one came out after the third movie. They decided to make a prequel, and then after that they made... Yeah, they did, because I bought this thinking oh, they're done, the trilogy's done, but then they came up with this movie, and I was just great, that totally ruins my whole, I have all of the movies. So yes, this one was the fourth movie that came out, but it's a prequel. So let me tell you what this movie's about. Blumhouse Productions welcomes you to the movement that began as a simple experiment, the First Purge. To push the crime rate below 1% for the rest of the year, the new founding fathers of America test a sociological theory that vents aggression for one night in one isolated community. But when the violence of oppressors meets the rage of the marginalized, the contagion will explode from the trial city borders and spread across the nation. So, as a prequel, this pretty much shows you how this whole purge situation started in America. I found it really fascinating, putting all the pieces together, and really it just solidified, the main purpose of why they're doing this. I know they kind of really mentioned it in all the other movies. If you've seen all the other movies and then watched this one as your fourth like I did, and it's just really hammered that in of yes, we're really actually trying to get rid of more marginalized people, the poor and the people of color, and that can't afford, security systems or to leave the country and all this other stuff. Very timely. Still timely, sadly. So we get some behind the scenes of what these governmental agents and people that are putting this experiment on, kind of their mindset point of view of oh, some of the people will give them opportunity if they want to participate in actually, committing violent crimes, not just, I guess some of the crimes other people were committing, which was just oh, I'm just gonna, bust open this ATM machine because it's really robbed me because of service fees, which is just, low level. And some people, doing, indecent acts out in public because, yeah, that's not illegal anymore during Purge night. There was a group of people who had a huge block party because that's an illegal act, but everybody was doing more low-level illegal stuff like theft and all the stuff that I listed. But there were, a small group of people that in that community that did want to actually commit murder. But I'm definitely would be one of those people that's just I just want to, grab some new tech. I just want to steal new tech. That's it. I don't want to hurt anyone. No one's done anything to me. Hopefully nobody wants to harm me either. But that's all I want to do. Just little small petty things that's just, just nothing. So, yeah, we just there's one guy who's just I'm gonna get revenge on this one dude and I'm gonna participate in their little experiment of like killing off somebody. And that same guy also does the same thing because he's crazy. And they also like paid some, like let some criminals out and to do, you know, the same thing to like, I guess, shorten their sentence, gain some money, whatever, but they had to like videotape the act so they could like surveil how this whole experiment was gonna go. And at first they're a little disappointed in the way things go at first until blood starts shedding, and then things get manipulated, and of course things escalate. And that's how it bridges into the other movies where it's a little more violent. Let me glance at what notes that I wrote for the first Purge. So I wrote down that it is a decent prequel, which I'm not gonna be redundant and say, of course I agree. Yes, the first Purge, decent prequel, explain the process of how they got to where they are later in the series if you're watching it in chronological order and not in the way that it was released in theater. I already mentioned that it's very on the nose with its message as far as, you know, pointing out the KKK and the SWAT attacking the poor and the minorities, because even though their original goal was to just lower the crime rate, see if like having one night for people to get their aggression out was enough for them to just, you know, be cool the rest of the year. Even though I feel like it's a very flawed system, because I'm just like, people get aggressive or like angry like throughout the year, and you're supposed to, you know, wait until like one day in the year to like get that kind of anger out. I mean, obviously people still go to jail because like law enforcement is still a thing in this universe, but yeah, I feel like, I guess those people who do want to commit violent acts aren't gonna just harbor that unless they're like really good at just honing in like that grudge for 365 days, which I feel like is a lot. I'm just like, that Johnson guy that I work with, ooh, I hate that guy. I can't wait to off him. How many days do I have? Oh, 250 days? Oh, I can totally wait till then. I'm sure I'll still hate this guy. Like, I feel like that's unrealistic. Another thing I wrote down in my notes is that I enjoyed the inclusion of the gangs and the betrayal in that, because one of the characters that's linked to the guy that wants to get revenge on the crazy dude and like his sister, there is like a gang element where there's one gang, but one of the members is discontent with the leader and wants to, you know, take over the gang because he thinks he could do a better job, so he tries to like betray him and stuff, which I thought was cool. I thought it was a good inclusion of not just the whole, I guess, other side of the big people in government being like, actually, this is really what we wanted to do, the Purge, is to like get rid of the people sucking up all the resources, which is just disgusting and gross. And I mean, in reality, the government's doing that now without having a purge. So there you go. Reality drop. So that's the first Purge. As I said, decent sequel. I did enjoy it. I liked it. So pretty good movie. Not my favorite, but I'll get there as far as the ranking goes. So moving on to the Purge 3-movie collection that has the first, second, and third Purge. And I'm just gonna go down the line. So let's start with, of course, the Purge. If you could commit any crime without consequences, what would you do? From the producer of Paranormal Activity and Sinister comes the inventive thriller that dares you to survive the most dangerous night in America, The Purge, when all crime is legal for 12 hours. An intruder breaks into James Sandin's gated community during the yearly lockdown and begins a sequence of events that threatens to tear the family apart. Now it is up to James, his wife, Mary, and their kids to make it through the night without turning into the monsters from whom they hide. So I have already done a review of The Purge on my blog, and I did reread what I had to say about it, and I will just stick to my opinion with it. I thought it was a very good movie. I know a lot of people didn't really care for this one, and they wished that it would have gone out in the open to see what was going on in the streets as what it, I guess, alluded in marketing, and it wasn't just, I guess, house invasion, home invasion type movie. But I liked that we get to stick with this one family with, was it Ethan? Yeah, Ethan Hawke. I thought it was kind of cool to, stay in the house with Ethan Hawke and his family and see these different situations that occur, because he's part of this company that makes the security systems in his neighborhood that keeps people out and keeps them safe during the purge, and they were the type they didn't want to participate, but he's just like, I gotta keep my family safe, so this is what we gotta do, and just, sleep this out and it'll all be over and just move on. But they end up in this situation where the son decides to let this homeless black man into their home, and these, I don't know if this is what they're called still, these yuppie, entitled, I don't know, I guess 20-somethings or rich people or whatever bother them in their home, and it's like, look, we just want the dude, we just want to get rid of him, we just want to get rid of the filth, and their morality is kind of questioned on whether they should, keep housing and hiding this dude or just give them up, and they just kind of go back and forth. It's just like, I don't want to be part of this, I don't want any part, we should just let him go. But it's just like, but we're letting them kill an innocent man for just being in the stupid classist, racist system that I don't know, the upper class has created. I know it's not that deep and that's not how they phrase it, but we're letting this innocent man go out there to be killed and tortured by these annoying people at our front door that is just causing us so much hassle all night. I don't know if that's such a good idea, because he is a human being and, should be able to, live his life or whatever. I thought that was cool. I still liked it. But I know it's not a lot of Purge fans' favorite installments, but I think I am in the minority, and I like The Purge a lot more than a lot of people did back then. There's still some stupid stuff that the characters do that is still kind of funny that I did mention in my review. But I felt like the suspense and the little bit of action that does happen is enjoyable, and I just really like the concept. I thought it was very different and unique for its time when it came out, so that gave it some extra points in my eyes. One thing I mentioned in my notes is that, unfortunately, when watching it in chronological order, watching the First Purge and then watching The Purge, great titles, guys. Watching in chronological order kind of decreased my enjoyment for The Purge, because I did kind of vaguely going into watching The Purge again for, I'm assuming, the second time. It kind of decreased it because the First Purge has so much action in it. It has way more action in it than The Purge, since The Purge is kind of in a one setting in a house, and it's just more built off of suspense and atmosphere of like who's lurking around, who's coming in the house, who's trying to get in, who's trying to get out, who's trying to, get revenge from who. Those kinds of little things, I think, that kind of decreased my enjoyment a little as watching it chronologically. So I don't know if anybody else had the same feeling when they decided to watch the first Purge first and then watch the Purge, but I feel like the pacing and energy of the first Purge throws off the good qualities of the Purge, if you actually did like the Purge. But that's just my opinion, obviously. But I think initially, and I still agree, that the Purge could have just easily been a standalone movie. I would have been fine without the whole franchise. I liked it as just a standalone movie, but I don't mind that it became the franchise that it is, because it did add more options and opportunities to expand the universe and explain some things. And it also tapped into what fans were expecting from the first one, which is seeing what's going on outside of the house and not just sticking with one family, which was a nice change of pace. So moving on to the second movie, which is The Purge Anarchy. The new founders of America invite you to celebrate your annual right to purge. The Purge Anarchy takes it to the streets for the country's yearly 12 hours of anarchy, when all crime is legal. The story follows an unlikely group of 5 strangers over the course of the night as they fight to survive a night fraught with impossible decisions. These strangers will find out just how far they will go to protect themselves and ultimately each other. This one was definitely more action-packed compared to The Purge, and even the first Purge, because it had Frank Grillo, which apparently a lot of people like. Good for them. I'm still not super familiar with him and his work and I guess his legacy or whatever. Even when I went to go see this movie, I didn't really know too much about him. For the most part, I'm just not a big person on like memorizing a lot of actors and stuff, and in the ones that I do, it's because they're like super big names, or if they are smaller names, it's just because I actually do follow them. But there's not that many. So I have already, once again, done a review of Anarchy. Once again, still totally agree with my review of what I said about it. I wrote down that Frank Grillo is a badass, which he is. He was super cool in it, if I remember correctly, since that triggered my memory. So this one follows, I believe it's like 3 sets of people, and they all have different ways of approaching it. There's this one couple that annoyed me, and I believe they annoyed me initially when I first saw it in the theater, that I'm just like, how do you guys even survive just life, just regular life? Like, because y'all are just struggle busting through this whole night, and y'all are also annoying dead weight, and I would have just left you. I'm sorry. I play way too many video games and watch too many movies, and I'm just like, you're dead weight. You can go. I don't care what happens to you. I mean, I just met you, but you're holding me back from my own survival, and I know that sounds super selfish, but they did some dumb stuff. And that kind of frustrated me, and I would have been like Frank Grillo's character and be like, you know what, I don't care what you do, I have my own goal here, and that is to get revenge on the person who killed my son. Granted, I'm not the type of person to go, you know, be Liam Neeson and try to kill people who have harmed my own family or anything, but I'm not a fighter, a lover, most of the time. But as far as a survival type thing, I would totally cut off dead weight. I'm sorry, I just can't. If you are not contributing to the tribe, you can just go. You're useless to me, and I just don't. I don't like that, but you kind of need those kinds of characters sometimes. I wrote down that this movie had a lot of great action suspense, especially compared to the first movie and the first Purge. I really liked how they all came together begrudgingly, but it just happened, and their chemistry worked really well, even the annoying couple. But it had a great balance with all their different personalities and skill sets, for lack of a better word. Oh, I mentioned something about that couple giving me like Dead Rising flashbacks, which I know some people have issues with escort missions, and I totally understand it when I started playing Dead Rising 2, but yes, it reminded me of that, where I'm just like, what are you doing? Stop doing stuff. We have to go to the safe house. What are you doing, Letitia? Stop smacking people with your purse and get your husband together. He's crying. Yeah, that actually happens in the game. But it gave me those kinds of feelings. I also wrote down that I felt like Anarchy elevated a lot of the best parts in the Purge movie. I don't know if a lot of people felt that actually enjoyed the Purge, but I did. All of the best parts that I enjoyed in the Purge movie, I feel like Anarchy took that and elevated it to another level. So the action was just superb, and it, built off of that whole, like, okay, so we got these crazy people coming from all over the place, just doing the most to get rid of people, trying to just murder people just because they can, which is just crazy. And the ending, I really enjoyed. Good ending. Just the whole journey was just fantastic. I know that this kind of marked the beginning of it being a little less, I guess, horror suspense and being more of like an action horror type movie, which I don't mind if it's a nice balance, and it did have a nice balance in my opinion. It still had some really good suspense, but it had some really great action moments as well, and most of it had to deal with freaking Frank Grillo. So, thank you, sir, for being part of this movie. Which, coincidentally, he's in the next installment, The Purge Election Year. It has been 2 years since Leo Barnes stopped himself from a regrettable act of revenge on Purge Night. 12 hours of lawlessness. This year, the annual ritual comes at the eve of a heated presidential election, with the nation deeply divided between those who are pro and anti-Purge. As head of security for Senator Charlie Rowan, Leo's mission is to protect her during her controversial and contested run for president. But when a betrayal forces them onto the streets of Washington, D.C., on the one night when no help is available, they must stay alive or both be sacrificed for their sins against the state. So one thing I wrote in my notes is, I'm disappointed I didn't write notes for this. Because I know, like, I would have put in some really great commentary from Maja, who went to go see this one with me, and she does not remember the Candy Girl. Oh, the Candy Girl.
I got a wicked sweet tooth tonight, and I want my candy bar, and I'm gonna take it. You don't got the balls to stop me.
The star of the show, the real star of the show. Yes, Frank Grillo is once again in this movie, and he is a bodyguard, Secret Service agent to this presidential candidate. And in the previous purges, excluding the First Purge, obviously, in the previous purges, as far as when these were released, governmental agents, and not agents, but governmental figures were off limits. But in this one, because they were trying to get rid of Charlie Rowan, played by Elizabeth Mitchell, since they were trying to get rid of her since she was anti-purge, they changed it so it was legal to get rid of governmental, presidential, those types of figures out of the way, which I'm just like, of course you would change the law to benefit yourself. Sounds familiar. Unfortunately, this did not come out at a time when the whole let's fill a seat in the Supreme Court, but not during an election year. No, 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 no. That is unfair. I don't want to get too presidential or, political, as maybe I should say, but just found that interesting. I don't think that happened during the time of this release, but I just find it interesting that it's just like, life imitating art, when it should be the other way around, right? It should be art imitating life. Anyway, another good, solid action horror movie. I really enjoyed it, but yes, I do regret not initially writing a review for it, because I'm sure I would have had some fantastic commentary to add to this. But I did mention that there was a lot of good comedic moments that really shouldn't have been funny, and most of it had to do with the Candy Girl. And hopefully I added that clip in there with her, but she was annoying, and I'm glad they dealt with her the way they did. But it brought to light more emphasis on how unfair and disproportionate it was for people of color dealing with the purge every year, because this guy who owns a convenience store decided to stay because his insurance didn't cover any damages from the purge. Something happened and he still needed to resolve it, but he didn't have enough time or money or something like that. There was a conflict with that, so he decided to stay at the store and defend his store. And this girl came back who tried to shoplift some stuff, and he was just like, no, 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 not doing that. And this girl, who's I believe a family friend or something, who I guess used to be a legendary figure in the community that has done some stuff and people fear her, but now she's part of this medic team that goes around the street with another woman and helps people who need medical assistance, since all emergency services are disabled during this 12 hours, and this is a continuation from the other movies as well. So they provide help for those who need it. But she comes and stops these girls from shoplifting, but they are like, I promise I will come back and get my candy bar. All her scenes, absolutely hilarious. She is very annoying though. Not my, she's my favorite character in such a weird way, because all her scenes were just so funny. But Frank Grillo is not the huge focus. He's also another story that ends up their stories end up crossing together, of course. But his whole purpose is to keep this presidential candidate, Charlie, safe from getting assassinated and killed. So of course he gets to show off being a badass all over again. So power to him. But all of their powers combine to take down this whole system and stop this whole purge thing, because they're just sick of it, because it's just getting out of hand, it's gone crazy, and now they're like, oh, let's get rid of presidential candidates that we don't agree with. Let's just get rid of those people who could change things in our government, and we don't need those people. We'll just get rid of them. And that's pretty much been their goal with this whole purge thing, their secret goal. That's not so secret, and if you really, really pay attention, is to just get rid of people that do not benefit them if they're at the top. That's the whole goal. If you didn't know that, rewatch the movie, but that's the whole purpose of the whole purge. And I don't just mean the movie, but the purge system in the movie. It's just get rid of people who do not benefit me if I am at the top. There you go. One last thing that I did write on here, which is Lane is the GOAT, because she is. She is the GOAT. She is the MVP of the movie. And that's the girl that I was talking about, that was a legend on the streets and just, she did the damn thing. Thank you, Lane. Last but not least, the 5th movie in the franchise, The Forever Purge. One night is not enough, as members of an underground movement, no longer satisfied with the annual night of anarchy and murder, decide to overtake America through an unending campaign of mayhem and massacre. No one is safe. On the morning after the purge, a mass gang of killers attacks a wealthy Texas ranching family and their workers. Exposed by daylight, the two families are forced to band together and fight back as the country spirals into chaos and the United States begins to disintegrate around them. Why does the back of this look like some weird Walking Dead kind of poster thing? I don't know. Just the thought while I was reading this. So, 4 movies into a franchise, and I'm sure when people saw the marketing previews for this, they thought, oh, it's just going to be more of the same. People running on the streets, killing each other, chaos, blah blah blah, the 12 hours are up. The end. This takes it another step further, which completely delves into that theory that I'm sure a lot of people said, and something I said in this video, is just keeping it to one night is not going to be enough for certain people, and this movie proves it. This is when what they thought they were doing that would benefit them as far as cutting down poverty and crime and all the other stuff that they believed was going to do decrease because of having this one night of just violence, practically, because nobody is focusing on the little petty crimes like theft and breaking into ATMs and all the other stuff. Now it's just insanity. Now it's just gone into chaos. And I like how the movie is framed with this, starting with this family coming from Mexico into America and just, integrating into this life here in Texas. Hello, I'm from Texas. And they show them, sheltering in this safe house with these other people of color, these other immigrants, during this 12 hours of just, might as well just be pure violence at this point, because that's how it's been escalated thanks to the First Purge, where they started bringing in other people to escalate things because it wasn't going the way they wanted to. But they move on into the following day, and you get to see what they experience after they see all this blood and bodies on the ground and stuff, and they just, pretend like it's just another day in life, and you see these people cleaning off the blood off their businesses and stuff like that, which is something I'm sure not only myself has wondered, oh, I wonder how these people function after such a night. They just open their door and it's just beautiful sunshiny day after a purge. I'm gonna go to work. I'm not traumatized at all. I mean, I would be, but I'm sure after living through so many purges, I guess you get a little desensitized to it. Certain events that happen here in America way too often, we slowly kind of get a little desensitized to it, but we try not to be. But I just found that interesting. And then in contrast, we have this family, as mentioned in the summary, that are rich and live at this ranch, and then all of a sudden these masked marauder type people come onto their ranch and say, look, this purge is not enough. We still want to take you down because you're rich and I'm not, and I feel like that's unfair and we should, get rid of the wealthy. And then the patriarch of the family tells him this really thought-provoking speech that makes so much logical sense.
You talking about life in America? The way the rich get rich off the backs of the poor. The way it's been ever since we robbed this land from the Native Americans. But you got no right to complain about the very system you're supporting by picking up that gun and sanctioning the goddamn purge. You know who created the purge, don't you? a bunch of fat, rich businessmen in Washington, D.C. So what would that make you, Kirk? What would it make you? Huh? That would make you their lackey, the goddamn hypocrite.
But you can't speak logic to stupid. He gives into what society, or what, I guess, the government, what the people, those higher-ups that make the rules, he gives into it. And he gives into the system, which is contradictory, but I feel like that's how America is. They say all these things about, like, well, we shouldn't do this and this is my right, but then all of a sudden they're siding with the government. They kind of just pick and choose which rules that they find unfair, but then later those same rules they're like, but blah 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 blah. I'm sorry, I gotta make this just a little tiny bit political. Let's talk about masks. So a lot of people who were anti-mask reappropriated the "my body, my choice," which was used for pro-choice for abortion. A lot of those people are very much pro-life, which is perfectly fine. Be pro-life. But then when it comes to the government saying, hey, you need to wear a mask, go get vaccine for this COVID thing, they're like, no, you can't tell me what to do with my body. But at the same time, they also tell women, people who have uteruses, what to do with their bodies. They just kind of pick and choose how to use this logic, which is very frustrating. But that's pretty much how I felt when the patriarch of that family of the ranch, would spin that logic to the dude. So, coincidentally, during the time of this release of the Forever Purge, and it happened quite a lot with the sequels of the other Purge movies too, they were very timely. And watching them in the theaters and the time that it came out hit a little differently than watching it at home again on 4th of July. While some of the issues that were going on during the time of those releases are still sadly prevalent to this year, it just, I guess because it was so present during that time, it hit a little harder than it does now, where those issues are still there, but they're kind of not really pushed on the back burner, but they're kind of buried a little bit because there's even more pressing issues, sadly, because we never fix anything. Very frustrating. So when the time this one came out, one of the biggest issues pressing America was the whole build the wall. We gotta get these immigrants out. There's too many refugees. Lock them in cages. That kind of sentiment. So I just felt like that was interesting. And I learned that this was written by a person of color, which adds another layer, I guess, or appreciation that I don't know if that was the whole goal of let's get someone who can understand the whole perspective of being a person of color or an immigrant or whatever in America to make it a little bit more accurate, because these two people end up working together to just survive, which is always fascinating to see the journey, or just really nice. And I mean, that's happened here in America too. When there is a huge tragedy, we forget our differences and we come together to support each other and rebuild. I mean, unfortunately, we go back to, fighting back on those differences. But it's always so nice to see us put those political, religious, gender, whatever differences we have aside to rebuild when tragedy does happen. It's just very inspiring, and I wish we could, stay like that. And reinvent what this country could be and grow and thrive, but we like to regress a lot, which is really frustrating as a person who lives in this country, especially in this state. But I digress. I don't have a lot of notes that I haven't said yet, which is a good thing, but one thing I did say that somebody else commented on when watching this movie was that it kind of felt a bit like a video game, and I kind of felt like that when I was rewatching this, and I was just like, I'm getting a lot of like Last of Us like POV type vibes in some of these scenes, which were kind of cool. Like when they were running into the theater, that was pretty awesome, and down the alleyway when they were just really trying to like get to where they're going, because the whole goal was to like try to get to like El Paso. And I found it amusing that like because the Purge like went out of hand, that they were trying to like escape to like Canada and Mexico, and then all of a sudden like both of those countries are like, we're gonna have to shut down our borders because y'all cray cray. We can't handle all of these people. And it's just interesting that it flipped into instead of people from other countries seeking asylum in America, it was Americans seeking asylum because of Americans. And yeah, just the whole downfall of the country was just interesting, because I'm like, you created this system, now you gotta deal with it, good luck. But I liked the chaos, and that they upped the ante of risk, and that they were able to keep kind of a similar formula that we're used to, but also turning it on its head and giving us a little something, like giving us something different. So I applaud them. So after I finished watching all these movies, I did see that there is a potential 6th movie coming out, and Blumhouse really wanted to keep the same director, or have that director on board still, to create a 6th movie, and he said, I don't want to do it unless I think of a really good idea. And it sounded like he kind of has a good idea of making it more global, maybe making America more, I guess, dystopian, because I mean that's the only way you can go in that route, since it was just practically, literally on fire because of all the chaos and all of the like military type services tried to, you know, handle stuff but failed. They had to all retreat, and was just like, I'm sorry guys, like these guys are just way too overpowered, and we just gotta retreat. I'm sorry, y'all gotta film for yourselves, civilians. So I'm curious what they're gonna do in a potential 6th installment, but honestly, I am perfectly fine ending it here with just the 5 movies. Even when The Purge came out, I was perfectly fine with it being a standalone movie. But that's just me. I'm not mad with where the franchise went. I think it went in a very good direction, and I felt like it progressed and improved on some things, and it never made me bored, obviously, because I bought the movies, and I went and paid for tickets to go see it in the theater. Like, all 5 of these movies I've seen in the theater. So, in conclusion, I do want to make an attempt to rank them unofficially, to say what is my favorite and least favorite and stuff. I'm going to say my least favorite, I'm going to pick the First Purge. I will put this at number 5. Only because it kind of already said what the Purge's purpose was, like, already in the Purge. It just really came out with it more bluntly, I believe, in the First Purge, which is not a bad thing. Maybe some people didn't get it because they were just like, it's just an action violent movie, so that's all I'm here for, is for the blood, guts, and violence, and not really receiving the message. but it does effectively, like, hammer the message more bluntly in the First Purge, but I want to say this is probably my favorite Purge movie. Let's go with that. The First Purge, number 5. I'm going to pick Forever Purge as my 4th favorite. I don't know if I'm betraying, like, whatever I rated it on Letterboxd or not, but I'm just gonna say Forever Purge is gonna be my number 4 favorite. There was a lot of chaos, just so much chaos. I do like the characters a lot, and just, you know, mixing together this whole commentary about immigration and refugees and stuff, but also the collapse of the government making a system and it turning on them. I mean, as satisfying as it is very timely, but I feel like it hit so much harder during the time that it came out, compared to, like, now, which is not a bad thing. But, I feel like it's not as, I don't know, they're all pretty memorable. But I guess this one may be a little less memorable. I don't know. And plus, this character really isn't, like, prominently in there, which a lot of people said. But, yeah, I guess I'll pick this as my 4th favorite. 3rd. I'm going to go with Election Year. Yeah, the 3rd movie I will pick 3rd. Also really great. I like that it did up the action and add more controversial figures that are featured in the First Purge, but this was their first time being shown in the movie, so... And also it had Candy Girl in it, which made it enjoyable in a different way. So I think I would pick Election Year as my 3rd favorite. My 2nd favorite is going to be The Purge. It doesn't have as much action, but I appreciated that it added something different to the genre of horror and suspense, because it was very different, and I really liked the concept, and I was excited to see it, and I feel like it contributed definitely to the genre, because it had commentary on what's going on in our country, and it got the ball rolling and gave us something different. I know a lot of people don't really like it as much and thought it was boring and needed more killing and stuff, which we got later, but I still acknowledge it for what it did and that it added something different to the genre, and I liked it. And I still would watch it as a standalone. I thought it would have been fine without it turning into a franchise, but obviously I'm not upset with that as a franchise. But yeah, I think The Purge would be my 2nd choice. So obviously, I guess The Purge Anarchy is my favorite installment in the Purge series. I don't know why I said that as a question. I feel like my ranking might change later if somebody asks me, like, months later, but I think Anarchy took all the parts that I enjoyed in The Purge and elevated it and made it more exciting and more action-packed, and it, you know, created a whole universe. It was the start of making this whole Purge universe and opening it up to its world. Well, I appreciated The Purge bringing us into someone's home while they're dealing with the chaos that is outside and people trying to bring some of that chaos into their home. I do like that aspect. But thinking about what happened in that movie, and then also thinking about the anarchy, pun intended, that is going on outside, just made me appreciate what the first one did. And I'm happy that the director, I think it's James Demonico, probably saying his name wrong. I appreciate that he opened it up to the rest of the country and letting us see what's going on in the streets and stuff. So I feel like Anarchy was the perfect sequel to elevate what the Purge laid down foundation-wise. So I will pick that as my first favorite. Also, Frank Grillo is badass, as is said. So that's it. That's my Purge franchise review. That's all the movies. Hopefully I did a good job. It wasn't too rambly, and hopefully I wasn't too political, but I don't care. It's my channel, it's my video, it's my opinion, but I do want to open it up and hear y'all's opinion as well in the comments below. Please tell me what your favorite Purge movie was and some memorable moments, and if you agree that some of the topics handled in each of these movies hit a little differently if you saw it in the theater of it when it was released, because I feel like it did for me. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and hopefully I can finish the initial franchise that I started before this, because I'm like, I really should finish this other franchise that got voted on so long ago, but I have yet to do that. I am still have to watch the second movie, so I don't know if I'll get a chance to do that today or not. But hopefully I can talk about that trilogy really, really soon, because y'all voted for it, and I want to rewatch it, obviously, because it's a good one. And hopefully I can do more than one Unwrapped review in a month, because I have way too many movies. If you've seen like my movie haul from the book sale and other little hauls from like conventions and stuff, I got tons to talk about, so I really should watch more of these things and review them faster. But the good thing is it guarantees that I always have Unwrapped review content. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in another video. Peace!